it's our commission from God to infuse and cultivate in our students things that are good, things that are true, things that are beautiful. Welcome to Paideia Ponderings. I'm Dr. David Stanton, Headmaster of Oakdale Academy, and it is, as always, a pleasure to have you join me. I just want to take a couple of minutes and ask a simple question that has a very complex answer. Why do we go to school? I think it's a critical question in today's age. Now, this might sound somewhat odd or confusing from someone who makes his living working in a school. What really is the point of education? Andrew Kern, who works for a group known as the Circe Institute, and if that is a group that's unfamiliar with you, I highly encourage you to check them out, Circe, C-I-R-C-E Institute. His quote goes along these lines: students are not products to be measured, but souls to be nurtured. And I couldn't agree more. You know, in our day, education is 7+ hours a day, 5 days a week, in many places 180 days a year. This is an important question for us to ask. What is the goal of education? How are we doing education, and how do we measure it? Do we use standardized tests as our measurement? Do they really measure how our students are doing? Well, Kern and those of us in classical Christian education would say this is not the real measure of our students' success. Now, that doesn't mean we throw out standardized tests. At Oakdale Academy, we do well on them. Our students through 8th grade take the Iowa Basic Skills Test. Our 9th through 11th graders take the pre-SAT. And we're proud to even recognize that our upper class students scored in the top 25 of all schools in the nation that take the classical learning test, the CLT. Now, the CLT is the answer to the College Board when it comes to standardized testing. And they are great things, these tests. But what they do for us here, and I would argue what they do for students and staff in a classical Christian school, is they reinforce, they confirm what our students are capable of. And they confirm for us that students are meeting the objectives that we set for each one of them. It's not a cookie cutter approach for us. Each student, knowing that they are created in the image of God, is given certain objectives that their teachers have in mind specifically for them. Modern education would say that taking tests will help with critical thinking development. Well, they would also say that part of standardized testing is how do you get into the best college with your scores? And that would propel you to the best job that you could possibly get. Those things sound great, don't they? But are they really the point behind education? Is it really that we spend all those days, all those hours, all those weeks and months, year after year, for 13 years of formal education, just so we can get into a good college for at least 4 more years of school, so that we can get into a good job to earn whatever amount of money we can earn to get that house with the white picket fence and the 2-car garage? Now, don't misunderstand me. Those things are great. Getting into a good college is an important thing for those that God is calling to college. Getting a good job to provide for one's family is, of course, important. But that's not why we spend all the time in a school building that we do. In classical Christian education at Oakdale Academy, we believe it's our goal, it's our commission from God to infuse and cultivate in our students things that are good, things that are true, things that are beautiful. Specifically here at Oakdale, we talk about instilling character, truth, and wisdom in our students. We approach things from a standard that wasn't too long ago that existed across our nation. We accept here that there's a moral code that exists. It's one that our culture has certainly rejected widely, but we believe in it here and we cultivate it here. That is really our point behind education, is to prepare them for a life of service, not a life of school, not a life with a job, but a profession, a calling from God that will enable them to serve God, serve their family, their community, and our country. Let me give you an example. In a literature classroom, one would, in a classical Christian school, certainly read J.R.R. Tolkien's famous work, The Hobbit. And part of that reading would be a discussion question. A discussion question could start as easy as this. Why was it, or what was meant when Bilbo Baggins was going to go on the adventure with the dwarves? And that's a simple check of understanding to see if students read the assignment. But in classical Christian education, we would not look to hide our motives with our follow-on discussion questions. We would draw out from our students other things surrounding Bilbo's decision and the ensuing adventure that takes place. We would ultimately argue for our students and discuss with them Socratically that Tolkien was looking to present good versus evil, a biblical view. He was trying to do what was right and present that as the correct way of living. It's what they stood for. Teaching in a classical Christian school is, I would argue, much more challenging than simply testing for knowledge, because we don't know which way a class discussion would likely go. One might come up as a student with a question back. Did the wizard Gandalf know what was going to happen with the Ring of Power right after he discovered that Bilbo had found it? Students could answer yes or no to that question, but a classical Christian educator has to be prepared to draw out some of the answers and see where that conversation goes and turn it always to a biblical perspective for character, for truth, for wisdom. They might say that, Gandalf not only knew, but perhaps he could even guessed what would happen in part throughout the rest of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Teaching at a classical Christian school is so rewarding. You get to see what is going on and how our students experience a text and how they grow through it in their understanding of God's plan for them. One other comment with testing. The College Board is the company that overall organizes and runs the SAT, the PSAT, and all those advanced placement, all those AP tests. And they'd recently created something known as an adversity score. They instituted it, but they've withdrawn it because there's quite a backlash. It basically was rewarding students that came from high crime areas or lower socioeconomic areas. They gave them a little bit higher score. Well, I'd only ask, when it comes to standardized testing, then are you really measuring what students are capable of? Or are you giving extra credit for a student's life and surroundings? Now, I don't want to minimize horrible situations in any way, but is it equally fair to punish those who don't experience those tough situations? Now, I would argue that you cannot bubble in or display on a spreadsheet character, truth, and wisdom. You see it in the lives of the students you teach, the alumni who graduate and come back to your school, and the reactions of parents. It's part of the amazement of teaching, and teaching specifically in a classical Christian school. You pour into the lives of your students and see the link in your students between the study of the liberal arts and a life of service as opposed to a test score. It doesn't mean that classical Christian education students don't get into good colleges. They certainly do. We, though, answer the question, what is the point of education? By focusing on God's unfolding plan for students, whether it includes college or not. It is measured by the fruit in the lives of the students. And for that reason, I know that our point of education is to fulfill our mission, to instill character, truth, and wisdom in our students in order to prepare them for a life of service to God, family, community, and country. And it is an honor to lead a school in this classical Christian education movement where we do this every single day. Have any thoughts or questions, any feedback on today's episode or any others? I'd encourage you to contact us. You can email us directly, info@oakdaleacademy.com. If you live in the Metro Detroit area and you want to learn more about what a classical Christian education could mean for your child, Simply email us at admissions@oakdaleacademy.com. I want to thank you for your prayers for Oakdale Academy and for this classical Christian education movement. I really can't wait to see what God is going to do in this movement and continue to shape the future